Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for checking it out if you're new. Happy New Year, everyone. It's the end of 2023. We're moving on to 2024. But before we can do so, we had a lot of movies in 2023, and my friends and I wanted to talk about some of our favorites. I'm Connor, aka the Movie Turtle.
Hi, I'm Morgan M. Steele. I'm an author. I have my own channel where I talk about whatever I want. Sometimes it's movies, not very often, but sometimes. So go check that out.
And I am Phil, aka Phil with one L. And over on my channel, I don't know if that was flipped actually. Now that I think,
No, it's
You
but
just got to do both.
yeah. But over on my channel, I do reaction content, video essays. I just talk about movies and react to them with my friends, and yeah, kind of talk about whatever I want. So you can go check me out over there. It's always a good time.
But with there being so many movies this year, we did not get to see everything. Like, I know myself personally, I still have not seen things like The Color Purple, Anatomy of a Fall, Priscilla, Poor Things, Beau's Afraid, or I'm still waiting to see American Fiction. I really want to, but MGM's not putting it in theaters anywhere. So
I basically wanted to get to more of the awards contenders for next year's Oscars. I didn't really get around to like anything like Saltburn or May December, which I was really wanting to see. American Fiction, Poor Things, Color Purple, stuff all like that. So like my list for favorites this year is going to be pretty basic in terms of the movies that I enjoyed, just because there was so much and I didn't get around to all of it.
Yeah. Yeah, same. I I had a short list of stuff I didn't get to. I wanted to see the Glenn Powell rom-com that's out right now. I wanted to see The Boy and the Heron. I love Miyazaki. I love Studio Ghibli, so I really, really wanted to watch that one and just didn't get around to it. And then I had one more. Oh, Asteroid City. I really wanted to see that one too.
Yeah.
And it's on streaming, so I have no excuse. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
my list of things that might have made this list, perhaps, but oh well.
but with that being said, this is a top 10 video just because our top 10 favorites. These are our own opinions. Share yours down in the comments below. But with that being said, ranking movies can be hard and sometimes silly. And so I did want to start off with some honorable mentions, some things that maybe weren't top 10, but were still good ones from the year. Like myself, I have a little list here of like Wonka. I really enjoyed that. Fun little musical to end the year. I have Oppenheimer, which is arguably maybe the most well-made movie of this year, but is not something I'm going to rewatch a ton, so it's not in my favorites, but I still can acknowledge the craft behind it. Things like Creed 3, Saltburn, Dumb Money, Godzilla Minus One are all really good ones I would say check out at some point.
No, go ahead, Morgan. Go.
Okay. I have 3 honorable mentions. Mine this year are Nosferatu, directed by David Lee Fisher, which Connor and I had the honor of seeing kind of first. We each have a video about that. You should go check it out. It's really unique. It's really amazing. I loved it a lot, but it just didn't make the top 10 for me, unfortunately. It's my number 11. It's like literally right under my top 10. And then the other 2 that I really liked this year were Bottoms and Totally Killer. I thought they were both super, super fun, like fun teen movie vibes. One is like an 80s time travel slasher, which is just so fun and amazing. And then the other one is a very gay, goofy comedy that I loved a lot. So go check both of those out, but they didn't quite make the top 10.
I was gonna shout out Totally Killer as well. I really enjoyed that one a lot more than I thought I would. It just was just one of those things where I was just scrolling one night and watched it, and it was a really good time. I like that one. I would also like to shout out Nimona on Netflix. Really good. Barely made my top 10, but I really enjoyed that movie, and it is a crime that it did not get released in theaters. It really deserved to be on the big screen, in my opinion. And I would also like to shout out Fast X just for being just dumb fun. It's so those movies like really capture like those like dumb 80s action movies, but it's like made in modern times. It just really those it's almost like the opposite of Barbie, where it's like Barbie captured what it was like for girls to play with dolls, and Fast X is literally just Hot Wheels. And they're so fun. I really enjoy those movies.
Morgan, you brought up Nosferatu. I did totally kind of forget about Nosferatu with this list, only because I didn't include it because
You didn't put it on your.
I did not put it on my 2023 just because we are like one of the only
Oh my
handful of
God.
people who have seen the movie. So, yeah. If I were to talk
Yeah.
about it here, nobody would know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about.
fair.
All right. So, again, these are sort of ranked, but also not quite. Like, overall, these are all my favorite films of the year. And starting off with number 10, this is a movie I watched today.
Oh,
Damn.
Yeah, this is The Holdovers, a Christmas movie, which makes it a little tricky
Okay.
to put it in my top 10 because I don't know if I would necessarily rewatch this movie in July, but it's super sincere. If you don't know what this movie is, this is about a group of students and a group of teachers who are the holdovers, the students and staff who don't go home for the holidays and instead stay at the academy. And they just get into all kinds of shenanigans to get, it's the whole, they start the movie hating each other. And then as they get to learn more about each other, it maybe gets a little too real at times. The movie is so sincere and human. Like, it handles the idea of grief and loss, but there's also like some dark humor in that, and there are a lot of good bits. Like, it's not just fart jokes and slapstick. I would say it is a comedy at the end of the day, but and then the editing, I love the editing in this movie because the movie is set in the 70s
Mhm.
and it is edited and color corrected. They make note of that like in the opening credits that it is edited and
Oh,
color corrected to look like a movie from the 70s, and I
love
think it
that.
totally captures that. I fell in love with this movie.
Hell yeah.
It's now
that
on
was
digital.
Woo!
Oh, I'm sorry. I was gonna say that's what like one of the things that came through in the trailer. Even the trailer was like 70s stylized, and I thought that
Yeah.
was cool.
Yeah. So my number 10 is The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which the three of us were lucky enough to see together. And Connor and I both read the book, and so, there was that whole layer to it. But I really do think it is a great, like, book to movie adaptation. I think it's spectacular. I think it picks up on all the things that really drag in the book, and I really love the casting. I love the acting. I love the, like, aesthetic of Panem that is established here and like the world building that we get. I like it all a lot. I love the soundtrack. I love like the vibes and the story and the melancholy. And I just think it was, as a Hunger Games girly, I think it was handled really, really well. And I really hope that it is not the last we see of Panem, but all of that is in Suzanne's hands. So, yeah.
My number 10 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem.
Woo!
I love movies that are like time capsules, and this one feels just like a bottle of 90s. Like it just has that nostalgia, and it feels like I love the art style, and I love just how different it is from all the other versions of the Turtles that we've seen, but also, still feels like very much the Turtles, like not too different. And just if we're going to keep remaking and rehashing franchises and stuff like that, at least being different. And I love just the slightest different, the idea that teenage boys can voice the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. It's in the name, and that we've never had that before. And it's just such a simple idea, but it comes across like it makes all the difference when you're watching the movie. And they really do capture that energy very well. I love the animation and just the humor. It is very much a movie made for teenage boys. It feels like it was ripped straight from the doodles in a notebook of a teenage boy in high school. Like it just feels like that. And yeah, I had a really good time with this movie.
Moving on to number 9. I think I'm the only one here who saw this one. This is Thanksgiving from Eli Roth. This is one where I acknowledge maybe not necessarily the best movie, but it is so fun. It's Scream. it's Scream, but make it Thanksgiving. The town, something bad happened in the past, and now there's a mass killer dressed as a pilgrim going around killing everyone. And it's the whodunit of who is the pilgrim and why are they doing this. And it literally is, in a year where maybe Scream 6 wasn't my favorite of the franchise, Thanksgiving filled that role for me. It is Scream, but make it gory. You know, it's Eli
Ooh.
Roth. It can, as someone who is a little squeamish with gore, there were a few kills where I did have to look away, shield my eyes. But yeah, this one was really fun. And it's a short, like it's just under 2 hours, so it's not incredibly long. Short, fun little watch for the holiday.
My number 9 may get me in some hot water, perhaps, but it is Taylor Swift The Eras Tour.
Another honorable mention from, or not an honorable mention, I didn't see it. I want to.
I had a spectacular time. I am not the biggest Swiftie. I don't know all the songs. I don't know all the things. But I'm very deep on Taylor Swift TikTok. And so when this was announced, I knew I had to go see it. Like I had seen, obviously people's actual like videos from the concert, and I knew it was like something special, lightning in a bottle. And I just was sitting there in awe the whole time. Like someday when the archaeologists find our society in thousands of years, they're gonna think she was our god. Like that's just like the level of like the lore, the costumes, the story, the music, the performance, the background dancers, the costumes. Like it really was spectacular. I had a great, wonderful time at the theater. So I put it on my list. I'm gonna count it. It's on Letterboxd. I'm gonna count it.
All right. That really threw me for a loop. I was not expecting that at all. But I love that for you. My number 9 is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. My favorite series of films in the MCU. Best trilogy, hands down, now confirmed. We can say that officially. The MCU finally made a good trilogy. Don't care if that's a hot take. It's not my favorite. Volume 2 is still my favorite. Like I still have like some criticisms here and there for Volume 3, but I think it was just a great conclusion and a great way to end to wrap up the story of these characters. And it's done very genuinely, very, heartfelt and very heart-wrenching. And just, yeah, it's crazy to think how far these characters came from like a decade ago when people were like, you're going to make a movie with the talking tree and raccoon? Okay, sure. And then flash forward all the way now. And it's like that raccoon is one of the best characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Just his arc and the way that James Gunn has written just all of the Guardians are just so well written and very near and dear to my heart. And I just, I love these movies.
The one good superhero movie this year. No.
I mean,
kind of, yeah.
Little bit.
There were 2.
What was the other one?
Keep watching to find out.
Oh God. Okay. Fine.
But moving on to number 8. My number 8 is a little film called Talk to Me, which I know our friend Morgan M. Steele here has not seen. Because it's a scary movie. So this is the teenagers, struggle with the hand that lets them communicate with the dead, and it gets all gross and scary. This has one of the most graphic scenes that, again, as someone who's squeamish, had to look away. Phil probably knows what I'm talking about.
I was leaning in. I was like, oh yeah. I love gore.
Oh no.
Like,
And yeah, it really gives me those almost Sam Raimi vibes, with Drag Me to Hell or like Evil Dead, where it's horror, but it's also silly. This movie is very silly, I would say at times. And made by 2 YouTubers. Phil, channel name?
Raka Raka.
And thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the creativity they took with this film, especially because they specifically went to A24 so that they could have that creative freedom, and I think it really shows through, and this film feels unique.
My number 8, I don't know if either of you watched it. It's a rom-com. It is Love at First Sight, the Netflix original movie. It is based on a book. I have not read the book, so I don't know any of that fun book to movie adaptation stuff. That's my niche. I should know it, but I don't. But it has Ben Hardy in it, and I have been in love with him since X-Men Apocalypse, and so seeing him in like a nice, happy rom-com role is just really nice. I love like I was really impressed with the writing of it, and I'm sure it's like from the book, but there's just like a layer of like the Shakespeare stuff. I don't want to spoil it in case you do like want to see it, but it's so cute. Like the chemistry, the meet cute, very very good. Jamila Jamil is in there as like the benevolent narrator god that like appears several times throughout. Love her. Like I really had a really good, like sweet, wonderful time watching this movie. And it is like kind of sad. Like there's a layer of melancholy over it for reasons I can't say, but I love Oliver and Hadley, and I think their relationship is so good and cute and nice.
Not my number 8 would be Creed 3. Speaking of trilogies, another solid trilogy. Well, I don't know if they're like planning to like continue the Creed saga, but honestly, they could end it here. It was so well done, and I hadn't seen any of the Creed movies before this one, but my mom was like, "Oh, we're going to see that," and I was like, "Oh, fine, I'll sit down and watch Creed 1 and 2," and I did, and it was like the Danny DeVito, like I get it. Like I was like, I'm not one for like sports movies, so I really was. It was just like, yeah, it's the boxing movies, yeah, it's the Rocky little requel thing that they're doing. Okay, cool. But then watching it, it's like, oh my god, like it's just it gets the blood pumping. Like you're just like, yeah, like you're actually watching a boxing match. And I was just so surprised of how much I found myself like feeling this movie. And you know, I because I've got a dead inside, so not a lot of movies get that much of a reaction out of me. So it made me feel like very emotional, and that caught me off guard, and I ended up really enjoying these movies. And yeah, Creed 3 really really good. Michael B. Jordan's directorial debut, and he did a really good job. I love all the anime like references in it. Even though I'm not that big of an anime fan, I thought that was cool that he interwove that into his direction of the film. And it's just all the performances are great, and it's just a really spectacular film, really spectacular trilogy.
My number 7, you've heard it here before. It is The Hunger Games, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. This movie not caught me off guard, kinda, because as you saw on this channel, hopefully, Morgan and I read the book. I hated the book, so I went into this movie, and maybe it was my incredibly low expectations that propelled it all the way up here to my top 10, but I really enjoyed the movie. It's directed by Francis Lawrence, and it feels right back in that world of Panem. Even though it is set earlier in the timeline, it all lines up. It feels like those Hunger Games again. And I think, at least for me, it was really good to get a good prequel, a return to a franchise. Like, I don't want to say nostalgia, because those movies aren't that old, but it also was... Like, man, they don't make them... It made me go back and rewatch the other ones, and they don't make them like this no more. But yeah, I love what they did with the storyline. They changed things. I feel like overall, the movie, I know the runtime scares people off. It is a very long movie, but I think it earns that runtime. I love Rachel Zegler's performance as Lucy Gray Baird. I'm sure you have heard, if you use TikTok, you have heard her sing one of those songs somewhere. I just really liked the movie. It caught me off guard, and it found its way to my top 10. I can't wait. It's on digital now. I plan to pick up the Blu-ray when it comes out.
My number 7 is Dungeons and Dragons. So it was so long ago. I keep forgetting that it was this year, but it was. And I rewatched it with my mom because it had slipped down my list a little bit, but I rewatched it, and I really do think it holds up. I really do think it's just a fun, silly, goofy fantasy time. I love the cast. I love their chemistry. Like, you can tell that they're having a blast filming this movie. And unfortunately, I don't think we're going to get a sequel. And I would love a sequel. But I love the characters. I love Simon especially. I think he's so like funny and great, and I love like a wizard character. And Chris Pine is great in this as well. And I really I love this movie so much, and it makes me so sad that it's never gonna happen again. So anyway.
You are right. That movie was special in that it literally is just, again, maybe not the best movie ever, but it is quite literally just a D&D campaign. Like, you've got the hijinks, the shenanigans, the crazy bullshit solutions to problems.
And I love that you could kind of feel the game happening, even though they never pull away from that fourth wall. Like, you can kind of feel like, oh, he rolled a nat 1. Like, oh, that's a nat 20. Like, you can feel those moments when they happen, and you can feel like the players playing, even though they're not there and they don't exist. And I think that's really, like, it's so authentic, and it feels like a D&D game. It's very good.
My number 7 would be Barbie. I love when you can tell like a movie was made with love, and it just look like you watch this movie and it is just us. It's sunshine, as in movie form. It is just so bright, so happy, so colorful, and you can tell every aspect of this film. Like, no one was lazy. Like, everything hits hard. 10 out of 10. Production design, costume design, acting, soundtrack, like everything. Everyone went hard in making this movie as special as it is. And I haven't seen I haven't seen Little Women, but I have seen Lady Bird, and I love Greta Gerwig's voice as a director. The fact that she is just like women, female stories matter. I love that. That is just the central point of all of her films, and it's different. The way she tackles it in all of her movies is different, and I'm excited. People are like, oh God, now she's stuck to doing Netflix Narnia. Oh God, her career is over. And it's like, no, I bet those Narnia movies are going to be something special, and I'm looking for it. Like, Greta Gerwig is becoming a director that I'm like looking forward to seeing what she makes next.
Moving on up to number 6, we've got one Phil mentioned it earlier, and that's Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles: Mutant Mayhem. As someone who grew up with the 2003 series, I've fallen in and out of love with the Ninja Turtles with some of the recent adaptations. Didn't love the Michael Bay films. And I haven't watched any of the new series like the 2012 or the Rise show. But this movie really caught my attention because it's got the crazy art style. It looks like a comic book, which is where the Ninja Turtles originated from. So there you go, another good comic movie from this year.
Oh yeah, I guess I didn't even think of it, but yeah, it is a superhero comic book movie. That's interesting.
Yeah, like Phil said, the fact that this is the first time the Turtles have been voiced by kids is crazy. And they do such a good job, and they do just sound like children where they are, just bantering and referencing like TikToks or and they're ad-libbing, he's mollywopping me.
It's so good.
It's such a funny movie, and I really fell in love with the Turtles again after this movie, and I'm so excited for the Paramount Plus show and the sequel.
My number 6 is, I don't know if you two saw this one either. This is Red, White, and Royal Blue, another book to movie adaptation. But I only read half of the book. It's a whole thing. There's a tangent that I'm not going to go into here. But anyway, I loved the movie. I really didn't expect to. It really did sneak up on me. People were like memeing about it on TikTok, and I was like, well, hell, I have Prime. I'm going to check this out. And I loved it. I loved it so much. I love the casting. I think both of the guys do spectacularly as their characters. I think both of them really, really embody Alex and Henry like perfectly. I love all the stuff with the royal family because the author Casey McQuiston had to like fictionalize like the British royal family and like change it around a little bit so it's not exactly like it is in real life for like legal reasons. And I love like, the version of the United States that we have in this movie where there's a woman president played by Uma Thurman. Like, so she's great. Like, the whole cast is really great. You can tell they're having fun. Like, the wedding cake scene is iconic. It's such a good movie. It's such a good rom-com. And like, I'm just so glad that we're getting more of these like recently. It really makes me happy to see, and it's really like special to me.
Nice. I did see it. That was sort of in like the middle of my list,
Yeah.
which you can see on Letterbox. Follow my
Woo!
Letterbox, Phil with 1L, shameless plug. Yeah, I thought it was a cute movie. I liked
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
My number 6 would be the last movie I saw in theaters this year, Wonka. I really enjoy. I don't know. It's such an emotional roller coaster with this movie because when it was announced, it was like, okay, Wonka prequel, okay, starring Timothy Chalamet, okay, and then they released that first pic of him, and it was like, okay, weird, and then that first trailer came out, and everybody was memeing on it, and so I really didn't know if this movie was gonna be super. I knew it was like either gonna be super bad or super good, like it could go anywhere, and so I had no expectations going in, and so maybe that's why it blew me away so easily because it was like, oh, this is a pleasant surprise. It is just a pleasant surprise, the movie, where it's just very heartfelt and almost it's kind of came at the right season too. Like it feels like a Christmas movie. It has that spirit very much so, and I love musicals. Big fan of musicals, and so it feels good to just have original musicals. Like people are still making those, which even people say that musicals aren't as beloved these days, and I love that people are still making them anyway, and that we're getting stuff like La La Land and The Greatest Showman, just people making original musicals like the old days, like the MGM studios, like Wizard of Oz, Singing in the Rain, and this movie feels like one of those. It has that heart and spirit to it. It's very warm, and I love good prequels, like because prequels are usually bad, and I love that this one isn't really trying to be a prequel to the 1971 film, which I really love. And I also really like Tim Burton's version. I love both versions, both adaptations of the story. I really want to see the Broadway musical because it feels almost like a fairy tale, where it's like there's so many versions of Cinderella, and so it feels like there could be so many versions of Willy Wonka. Like anyone can make a Willy Wonka movie, and it's going to turn out different. And this one, it stands on its own in its own way. Like Timothy Chalamet is his own Wonka. He very much feels like the book Wonka in that way, in that regard. And the music is great. It's very catchy, very toe tappy. And I love, prequels usually do the thing of like having to explain every little thing. And I love that this movie doesn't even do that, where it's just like, yeah, Oompa Loompas exist. Anyway, moving on. Like we're not really, they have their own island and that's it. That's all you really need to know. We're not going to explain the lore of Oompa Loompas and how this began. I love that it's just like, oh yeah, no, it's just there. And even the silliest detail, like Willy Wonka is known for all the silly words like scrumdiddlyumptious and everlasting gobstopper. And I love that they kind of explain why that's a thing, and it becomes it sounds dumb in concept, but as you go on, it's one of the more emotional like ties of the film between him and his little companion Noodle, which is one of the sweetest relationships I've seen in a movie in a long time. It's very cute, just a very cute movie. I really really liked Wonka.
Moving on to number 5. This is a movie I wish I could own on physical, but Netflix doesn't put anything on physical media because they hate us.
Yeah.
This is, Phil mentioned it earlier, Nimona. This movie is such a special movie. It feels like an incredibly important film. This is from
N.D. Stevenson.
Based on the graphic novel from
N.D. Stevenson.
It's very different. I read the book right after watching the movie, and it is very different. Like, they are not the same story at all. And I think what they made here with the movie was really special. Like, it was just
N.D. Stevenson
getting another opportunity to tell this story in a different way.
I actually want to interject. It's N.D. Stevenson.
Oh no!
Is the name.
I knew. Yeah, I knew it was a different last name.
You said N.D. Johnson. I was like, that feels wrong. And yeah,
now we got to do it all over again.
No, just dub Phil's voice over your own
going
voice.
to. Anyways, like Phil said, Disney totally dropped the ball on this movie. This was a Fox film that when they acquired Fox, they pitched it and sold it off to Netflix. And I just think that's really hilarious because then the movies Disney did put out this year, less than stellar. They ditched Nimona to then put out Wish. Video coming soon.
L.
Oh, R.I.P. Blue Sky Studios.
Yeah, the animation is so good in this movie. Like, it looks like
You
this
can.
movie does. It has the storybook art style, and it looks beautiful. It's a LGBT story, and yeah, it's just a really beautiful movie. I've rewatched it a couple times. It's short watch. Go give it a watch if you haven't. If you have Netflix, you've got no reason to have not seen this movie.
My number 5 is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. I love it. I love the animation. I could go on for like 3 hours about all of the different details and the frame rates and the stuff, all the different stuff that they did. I know production of this movie was hell, and so I want to give the animators huge props for all of the amazing art and work that they've done to make this movie. And I know that the circumstances you worked under were not great. And I hope that they improve if we ever do get the sequel that we've been promised. And I hope that you get the time and money that you are owed for all of your hard work. But I love the movie we got. I love the writing. I love, the animation especially. All of the cool like watercolor stuff that they do in Gwen's world, all of the colors like bleeding into each other. I think it's so like unique and gorgeous and wonderful. I love Spider-Punk and the glued together look that he has and the way that his colors change. Like I just think that is so like spectacular. And I love Miles. And I'm so glad that like Miles, like especially after the first movie and now like again he's with the game coming out especially too, like he's getting like all of the recognition that he deserves because I love him as a character and I love him so much, and just like exploring his arc and getting to know more about his world and his universe and his relationship with like being Spider-Man and like kind of living in the shadow of another Spider-Man. And I love this movie. I love the first one. I don't know. I'd have to watch the first one again to see where I rank them amongst each other. But I love them both so much, and I can't wait to see where the story arc goes from here.
The other good superhero movie I was talking about.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So there's actually 3 of them this year.
It's so weird to think of them as superhero movies. But
I
it's
know.
Like, oh, yeah,
I don't
it
know
is
why
that.
I like separate it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not because it's animated. It's just story-wise. I don't know. It does not feel like that. It just feels like its own little epic tale.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Moving on to my number 5. Connor mentioned it earlier. It is Talk to Me. From directors Michael and Danny Philippou, also known as Raka Raka. I have been watching their YouTube stuff when I was watching that when I was in high school. So I feel, even though they're older than I am and more experienced, I still feel like a proud father watching them put this movie out. And it's so good, a well-crafted horror movie. And I love the mythology of this movie, of the supernatural elements. I love that it's simple enough and they give you just enough for the story to work. They don't have to explain away everything and go in depth. It's very straightforward, very simple. I love that it's a metaphor for addiction and drug use. I think that is done incredibly well. And it just gets everything that it tries to do, it gets it right. And I really enjoyed it.
All right, moving on to number 4. The certain individual, a Mr. Tom Cruise, made an appearance on my list last year. And what do you know? He's back again this year with Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning. I love the Mission Impossible movies. Like, I acknowledge they can get a little silly. They're getting sillier with each entry. But these movies live by the rule of cool. And they're just awesome stunt work, awesome action sequences, and I love what they're doing here. This is, at the time, it was a part 1. Now they've said that, they're ditching the part 1, even though it's already still here on the box. But they are ditching the part 1 and 2. But yeah, I love that Tom Cruise just loves to go jump off things or fly into things. And these movies might not be cinema, so to say, but they are just fun to watch. And that's why I love the Mission Impossibles, and I think this is one of the best ones.
Hell yeah.
We'll
Yeah, I
make
need to
more.
watch those. I love spy
Yeah.
stuff, and I just haven't seen any of those for whatever reason. But
Yeah,
yeah,
good
my number
spy.
4 is Nimona. I loved Nimona. I have been a Try Guys fan for a while, for like a handful of years, and Eugene from the Try Guys voices the love interest, whose name I forget. And I love him, and I love getting to see him like in the mainstream. It's like weird. It's wonderful. I love it. He has a novel coming out at some point, so he will be pushed even further into the mainstream, which is great. But I just like, for every reason the boys said, like I love this movie. I love its relationship with like gender and sexuality, and I think it especially has like another layer for ND like now as opposed to when they wrote it originally. So I think it's really awesome that they got to tell this story one more time on a big screen. And I love the animation, I love the world building, I love a sci-fi fantasy, and we don't get to see that very often, where it's like fantasy, mythical creatures, magic, but also like they have modern technology. They have monorails and subways and phones and screens and all of this fun stuff. I love that blend. And I really love it. It's really heartfelt. I love everything about it. I love the writing. I love the quips. I love, all the jokes and the fun gags with the animal transformation. Yeah, I love it so much. It's very special to me.
Yeah. My number 4, you two may have heard of it. It is Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning number 1.
Yeah.
It is just great action and stunt work, like Connor mentioned. And it, like I had said before with the Creed movies, I just love movies that make me feel something. And this movie just get like all of the Mission Impossibles just really get my blood going, where I'm like, yes, yeah, like everything. I'm just like, yeah, let's go. Even down to like the theme, which is just really like when you hear that theme, it is just literally like makes you want to just get up and start running. Where it's so
Yeah.
good. It just energy. These movies are like 5-hour energy, just like a real like a capsule of that. It's just so good. People rag on Tom Cruise and say he's weird, but I say that his weirdness pays off because it's really entertaining. It really comes through. It's just these movies. I love that. I love spy movies. Just like Mo said, they're great. I love that this movie exists on kind of on the same coin of like we get the super serious Bond movies, and then we have these very silly like spy thrillers with the Mission Impossibles, and they're great. Everyone, I think every one of them improves on the last. And it's crazy that we're this far. Like, what number Mission Impossible is this?
This was 7.
Yeah, we're on the
1 second.
7th.
I'm so
one of
sorry.
these.
There's something beeping in the house. I have to make sure it's not the carbon monoxide. I will be back. I'm so sorry.
Goodbye, Megan.
Oh, God, no.
They venture into that ridiculousness of the Fast and Furious movies, but they also
Yeah.
like don't. They're still
There's a sincerity there that isn't really. Well, no, I would say the Fast and Furious movies are sincerity because it's all about family. But there is just like so much effort, even though it is silly. It's not like lazy silly where it's like, okay, well that's just dumb, or it's like you could tell it is thought out at least.
It's silly, but Tom Cruise actually threw himself off that cliff.
Insane. I can't believe Mo actually died. That's crazy.
What? How long do we give it before the carbon monoxide got her?
Before we just keep going.
How long do we go till we call 911?
No. Yeah, so as I was saying, before I was so rudely interrupted by Morgan.
By Morgan dying to death.
Dying to death. Exactly. Yeah, this is the 7th Mission Impossible movie, and they keep getting good. Like they don't suck yet. So yeah, that was where I was gonna end that note.
Number 3. You heard it from Phil earlier. Is Barbie. This movie caught me off guard. I knew it was gonna be cute and fun, and that's all I was going for. It was like the silly Barbie movie starring Harley Quinn, but then it was so much more than that. Like Barbie and Ken go on their adventure, and then they start questioning existence and the meaning of life, and I was not ready for that movie. to do that, especially opening the same weekend as Oppenheimer. We all thought Oppenheimer was going to be the movie that made us ponder what is the point, when Barbie was the one that did that. And I'm a big sucker for practical effects, and so the fact that they actually built all those crazy sets for this movie, like, you can see where all the time and effort and love went into this movie. It's such a fun little time. And women.
Women. Yes. So my number 3 is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. I am a Turtles girly. I love the Turtles. My first show was actually the 2012 show instead of the 2003 show. I've heard 2003 is very good, but anywho. I love the new movie. I love so much that, like, you know, every iteration of the Turtles has kind of focused on a different area of that title. And this is the first one that has ever honed in on the teenage thing, like, as hard as they do in this one, because some of them focus really hard on them being ninjas. Some of them, like the Bayverse movies, focus really hard on them being mutants. But this one is really the one where they finally dig into, these are high school boys. They are silly, they are goofy, they are on TikTok, they are teasing each other and joking around. And like the boys said, I love how young they sound. Like, I think that's just, like, so charming. And it's weird that they had never, like, thought to do that before. Like, in every other iteration, it's like 30-year-old men playing the Turtles. But I really love, like, the guys that they got to be these new Turtles. I love them so much. I love Splinter. I love, like, how weird and wacky he is, and all of the other side mutants too. I think they're all really, really cool. I love Superfly. I think he's awesome. I think it's really cool that they kind of diverted away from the traditional Baxter Stockman that we get, but he's still there, but it's just like a different take on that storyline, and I thought that was really, like, interesting and awesome and neat. Everyone here is giving their best performance. Like, Paul Rudd as Mondo Gecko is just so, like, funny and silly. And I really love it. I really, really can't wait to see where this goes, because ever since I was a teenager, like, in high school, I always wanted to see them, like, in high school, and this is kind of really the first time it's happened. There was, like, one Nickelodeon short where they were, like, in high school for a bit, but it's always temporary, and I love the idea of them just, like, getting to be actual teenagers and really exploring that territory that I don't think they've ever done in before. So I'm really excited to see where it goes, and I really love just like everything about it. It's such a good movie.
My number 3 is Spider-Man. It's I don't even know what to say. It's just good. Like, everything is good. The animation, the story, like, I love that it's packed with so much detail, and it enriches the movie even more, that you can just find something different on every watch. It makes it fun. It makes it like a game almost. And it's just a really enjoyable experience. I could watch it over and over again and never get tired. And I am looking forward to part 3. I hope they take their time. Like, I'm kind of glad that they're not, like, rushing to get it out next year. I will wait as long as I need to get that third part. But yeah, it's just good movie. Good movie.
Yeah. Well, you just heard it all there. But my number 2 is Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Everything both Phil and Morgan have already said. Amazing animation. Nimona, Ninja Turtles, Spider-Verse, all pushing animation to its limits / beyond its limits. You know, testing, what can we do? And this movie just goes crazy. You know, the first movie was the comic book style, and then, like Morgan brought up, they almost, now that we're dimension hopping, we get real crazy with it. I love the way this movie looks. I love the story of it. Like, it feels like a superhero story. It feels so accessible. Like, kind of how Phil said, of you almost don't think of it as a superhero movie. Like, I feel both Spider-Verse films and this one, the only real barrier you have for this one is, you know, you should probably go watch the first one. But otherwise, these aren't the big cinematic universe. Oh my god, I didn't see Captain America 7, so I can't watch the Avengers 32. No, you can just go watch this movie and have a good time.
Yeah. I also just want to add, I think that it's brilliant to take a character like Miles Morales and use the idea that certain fans will reject the idea of him being Spider-Man. And I like that they've woven that into the story, and making it like, making him come into his own as Spider-Man by saying, I am Spider-Man. I am a hero. No one gets to write my story but me. And to have that commentary kind of break the fourth wall, I think is smartly done, and one of my favorite aspects of the movie as well.
Fuck Miguel O'Hara. He's my number one enemy. Bullying a 15-year-old. Love Oscar Isaac, though. Love Oscar Isaac. My number 2 movie is Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I love the Guardians movies, and I always forget about it. Like, I don't feel like they're high enough on my MCU ranking. But I love them so much. I love the vibes. I love the soundtrack. I love the color palette. And I really do think, like, James Gunn just gets it. Like, I love his movies, and I love how much he loves this trilogy, and you can really, like, feel that in the way he takes care of these characters and the way he, like, handles their story arcs and everything. Production design slaps, as always. Like, the costumes are great. I love everything about this movie. I love all the different worlds we get to see, and I love that we finally get, like, closure for Rocket's arc. It was one of the stories that I had looked the most forward to hearing, because we know, like, Gamora's backstory, we know Peter Quill's backstory, but this is really where we get to dig into Rocket and figure out what he's all about, and I love that so much. I don't know. I'm gonna miss them because, like, I don't know exactly when we're gonna see any of these characters again. And I really hope we do at some point. Obviously, there's like what if, but just I love Nebula and I love all of them, and I would hate to lose them forever. But yeah, really good movie. Cried like a baby several times, but yeah, so good.
My number 2, as mentioned by these guys, is the Hunger Games, Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised as well that it like went up this high, but like it was like the more I thought about it, the more I was like, actually, I really like this movie. Like I just kept thinking about it, and I kept loving more and more aspects of it, and just like everything about it is great. It again, going back on like prequels, usually prequels are dicey, and this one nails it. And I love that it doesn't feel disjointed at all. It picks up right where the last Hunger Games film left off, where it just kind of like it feels very much in the same world, very much like just like another story within that world, and it doesn't feel like a weird offshoot thing. It ties in really well, and I love everyone's performances. All that's great, and it just maybe it is a bit of nostalgia too, so it kind of wins at that point, kind of cheats a little bit, because I am nostalgic for that era of like middle school when when the YA genre was at its peak, and it's just like, yeah, we're the Hunger Games is back. And even though I'm not even like I love the Hunger Games movies, but I wasn't like the biggest, I wasn't the biggest fan. I didn't read all the books, but it was great to just come back to this world, and it was like almost like it never left, like there wasn't a gap of time. It was like, oh yeah, the Hunger Games, I still love those. It's just like being reminded of why the Hunger Games are great. And yeah, Rachel Zegler is great. She doesn't deserve any of the hate that she gets. Music, great also. Love some toe tapping country, good old country music. Yeah, it's just, yeah. And like Mo said, I hope we do see more from this world. I feel like there's so many stories that we could dive into, and yeah, I love a good tragedy, and this movie is very tragic as well, where it's like it's going to happen, but still you're rooting for it not to, and that is the sign of a great, well written prequel.
Well.
Well.
To number 1, our favorite movies of the year.
Wow.
Phil said it all the way back at his number 10. Morgan just said it. My number 1, I could not have guessed, was Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I, almost like Morgan said, I kind of rediscovered a love for these movies because of Phil. I I underappreciated them. And then upon rewatching all of them, I realized that like these are real movies. Not to dog on the superhero genre, but like how we were
You
just
can dog
saying
on
with
it a little.
Spider-Verse,
A
you
little.
know, you could watch these just on their own. Like
Yeah.
this third one kind of requires a little bit of homework from the Avengers Endgame and Infinity War. But
Which I don't
overall,
love.
but I think James handles it great. And
Yeah.
what he
Mhm.
does with the characters because of the decisions made by other directors with his characters. He takes what he's given and he crafts such a beautiful ending for this trilogy. It's so heartfelt and action packed. It made me laugh, it made me cry. Like these two have said before. Again, big sucker for practical effects, and the fact that this movie set a record for like the most practical effects and makeup and everything is insane, and it looks so good on screen. I love this movie. It subverted all our expectations. We all thought it was going to be this big downer, and it's really not. It really is truly a
Mhm.
celebration of the story James Gunn has been trying to tell. And he's finished. And I think, like I said, for me, it was a huge welcome, a huge surprise, and a welcome surprise at that, in a time where we're kind of starting to feel the superhero fatigue.
Good movie.
Yeah, very good movie.
Me
Very,
love movie.
yeah.
Yes. So it should come as no surprise at all that Morgan's movie of the year is Barbie. I love Barbie. I am of the generation that grew up on the Barbie princess movies. I've seen all of them up to Barbie and a Mermaid Tale 2, which is there's a whole conversation there. But anyway, I love the production design first and foremost. I think it is fucking spectacular. All of the Barbie cars and like the attention to details that they pulled from real life dolls that Mattel produced, like all of the discontinued dolls, but also just like right down to the fashion, like the scene where Ken is throwing all of the clothes out of the closet and it's just like all of these classic like 70s and 80s Barbie outfits that like existed. I think that's so special and awesome and cool. On so many levels, but also like the story is great, and not to say that, but like as a woman, like at the end scene of the movie with just all of the joy, all of the women, like the montage of the real life women just like being women and just enjoying their girlhood. I was crying. I cried so much during this movie, and I like like Connor said, we went to see Barbenheimer, and Barbie was the one that afterwards we were all sitting in a sushi restaurant, like thinking about real hard. Like we just needed several moments to process just everything that this movie was, and you can tell that every Barbie, every Ken, even Alan, like they all really, really care about this movie. And Greta is spectacular, and I, like Phil said, I cannot wait to see what she does with Narnia. The way she's gonna handle Susan, just I'm like so excited for it. But I love Barbie. I always have loved Barbie. I always will love Barbie, and it's so nothing will top this for me. I don't think it's it's my whole personality. I'm a new woman now.
My number one, really weird. It also starts with a B. My favorite movie of the year is Beau is Afraid.
Mhm.
Yeah, and it's another like did not expect it at all. I didn't know what to think of this movie. I never know what to think of any Ari Aster movie when it comes out because they're all individually super strange in their own way. And without going too much into it, because I know you guys haven't seen it, and I know Ari Aster like doesn't really give away a lot of story in his like in the promotions for his movies. Beau is Afraid is about a man who gets a phone call from his mom who makes him feel guilty for not visiting her. So he goes on this 3-hour epic journey to go see his mom. And that's the most simple I can make this movie. It is so that's as thin as I can make the synopsis. And it is so strange. And I think I understand the hate that this movie got because when it came out, people were like, "Oh my God, Ari Aster finally made a bad movie. What is this crap?" And so I was going in because I love forming my own opinions. I was like, "Okay, I gotta see." I've loved Hereditary. I really enjoyed Midsommar, and so I was like, "I gotta see what is going on here." And I understand why people hate this movie. I completely get it. So if you guys watch it and you're like, "Yeah, Phil, I don't know about this one," I completely understand. But I am Beau is Afraid's number one defender. If Beau is Afraid has 0 fans, then I am dead. I love how weird this movie is. And this is probably the weirdest so far that Ari Aster has done, not counting his short films because he gets real weird with those. But yeah, this one's for the MAMABOY Mama's Boys. This one really struck me in a way similar to kind of like everything everywhere all at once, where the idea, between a mother and daughter, that sort of generational trauma type of thing. And this movie does a similar thing, not the exact same. But Nathan Lane, who's in the movie, described it when he was like doing interviews. He was like, "This is the Jewish everywhere, everything everywhere all at once." And when I heard that, I was like, "Oh, why would you do that? Why would you try to ride the coattails of a very successful movie that came out last year?" And then I watched it, and I very much understood what he was getting at. This is a movie about guilt and how parents can use guilt like a superpower and make you feel guilty about stuff even when you've done nothing wrong. Like, it's just they have that ability. And that one hit me real deep in the familial parental issues. Nobody's parent is perfect, so yeah, it goes without saying that. Yeah, it's just really weird. And it's I also like kind of respect a movie like this for existing. The fact that A24 was like, "Yeah, we'll throw $35 million at a 3-hour odyssey about a man going to visit his mom. Sure, why not?" And they just made that. And it's like any other studio would be like, "Are you fucking crazy? No, we are not greenlighting that." But A24 took the chance. And I'm just appreciative that like a movie this strange, there will never be a movie like this one to come out ever again. So yeah, that's my rant. I'm getting off my soapbox, but I really love this movie. It's crazy. It's something that I think everyone should experience at some point and form their own opinion on.
Yeah, no, this year had a whole bunch of different movies. I was going to say our list, you saw some overlap, but overall I think we had a pretty broad variation on our list. Like, you had some of the big ones like Guardians, Spider-Man, Ninja Turtles, Barbie that all overlapped. But otherwise, I feel like we all had pretty varied lists.
I got the rom-coms covered. Don't you even worry about it.
I took Phil's job of the scurry movies.
Yeah. And I am on my usual brand of just weird shit. I love a weird ass movie.
Love that.
And so those were some of our favorites from the year. Let us know in the comments down below what were some of your favorites of this year. There's a whole lot more movie coming out in 2024 that I'm excited to see. Thank you all so much for watching. If you liked what you saw here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you know when the next one's coming. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.